Have you ever wondered where the chilling stories behind your favorite slasher films really began? What if I told you the urban legends that haunt our dreams were already lurking in the shadows of 1960s cinema, waiting for their moment to strike? From masked killers to haunted towns, these cult classics didn't just scare audiences, they inspired generations of horror. Today, we're peeling back the curtain on 15 unforgettable films that turned rumor into legend and fear into art. Ready to discover the roots of the modern slasher? Let's dive into the darkness together. Number 1. Psycho, 1960. The 1960s opened with a bang and a knife when Alfred Hitchcock unleashed Psycho upon the world, forever altering the DNA of horror and slasher cinema. At first glance, it's a story about a secretary on the run, but those who watched it in theaters were in for a ride no one saw coming. Marion Crane, played by Janet Leigh, embezzles a wad of cash and holes up at the eerily quiet Bates Motel, run by the gentle yet nervous Norman Bates. Hitchcock toys with audience expectations, building tension from the moment Marion steps inside the rain-soaked lobby. The infamous shower scene, accompanied by Bernard Herrmann's shrieking strings, became one of the most dissected sequences in film history, not just for its visceral terror, but for its editing genius. What made Psycho so revolutionary was how it played with urban legend. The story of a killer lurking beneath the surface of normal society had always haunted small-town gossip, but here Hitchcock gives it flesh, blood, and a disturbingly relatable face. Norman, inspired by real-life murderer Ed Gein, is the boy next door gone horribly wrong, a theme that would echo through every future slasher flick. The reveal of Norman's true nature, with that chilling turn in the rocking chair, set a new benchmark for the twist ending, influencing everything from Halloween's Michael Myers to Friday the 13th's Pamela Voorhees. Psycho also changed movie-going culture. Audiences were forbidden from entering the theater after the film started, unheard of at the time, and the secrecy heightened the shock value. Critics were divided at first, but the public's reaction was electric. The movie's success didn't just spawn sequels, it inspired a whole generation of filmmakers to explore killers lurking in plain sight, psychological breakdowns, and the frightening idea that evil might not look like a monster, but like your neighbor. Urban legend became urban nightmare, and the modern slasher was born. Number 2. Peeping Tom, 1960. Just months before Psycho scandalized America, British cinema birthed its own urban legend with Michael Powell's Peeping Tom. This was a film that truly rattled the foundations of what was acceptable on screen, even in an era not easily shocked. The plot is chillingly simple. Mark Lewis, a shy focus puller at a London film studio, is obsessed with filming women as he murders them, using a camera rigged with a blade so that he can capture their final moments of terror. It's the ultimate horror twist on the voyeur's gaze, a film about watching, made by a director painfully aware of the power and danger of cinema itself. Mark is more than a killer. He's a tragic figure, warped by childhood trauma and his father's cruel psychological experiments. The film digs into the urban legend of the quiet neighbor who harbors deadly secrets. Its London is a maze of cramped flats and curious glances, a city where privacy is an illusion. Powell's use of POV shots letting us see through Mark's camera put audiences uncomfortably in the killer's shoes, a device that would later become a slasher staple. Every time you watch a masked killer stalk their prey in first person, from Michael Myers to Ghostface in Scream, you're seeing the long shadow of Peeping Tom. The backlash was immediate and ferocious. Powell's career was nearly destroyed overnight. But over time, Peeping Tom gained cult status, recognized for its insight into the relationship between viewer, camera, and violence. Its influence is everywhere in the slasher genre, not just in technique, but in the idea that sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones holding the camera or sitting right next to you in the dark. Number 3. The City of the Dead, 1960. If you ever found yourself driving through a fog-shrouded New England town, the ghostly air of the City of the Dead, released in America as Horror Hotel, is probably to blame. The story spins a classic urban legend, a cursed town forever haunted by its past. Here, the sleepy hamlet of Whitewood is home to witchcraft, ritual sacrifice, and centuries-old secrets. College student Nan Barlow travels there to research a paper and quickly finds herself in Over Her Head, a motif that future horror would return to again and again, from The Wicker Man to Children of the Corn. Christopher Lee lends the film gravitas as Professor Driscoll, a mentor with a sinister connection to the town's occult history. The townsfolk are stiff and unfriendly, the air thick with suspicion, and the inn is perpetually wreathed in mist, setting the standard for the creepy small-town slasher setup. The townspeople's devotion to a witch, burned centuries before and now returning for revenge, is the stuff of classic urban myth, transformed into gothic horror by the film's shadowy black-and-white cinematography. The City of the Dead helped shape the slasher's fascination with isolated locales, cursed histories, and the idea that evil endures, just waiting for the next outsider to wander in. Later films like Friday the 13th would take the outsider in a strange town setup and run with it, mixing folklore with modern fears. The film may not have the gore of its descendants, but its chilling atmosphere and relentless dread laid down the tracks for future generations to follow. Number 4. Eyes Without a Face, 1960. Georges Franju's Eyes Without a Face is one of those films that feels like an urban legend you might hear at a party. A surgeon, desperate to restore his daughter's beauty after a car accident, kidnaps young women and removes their faces. It's a story that's both elegant and horrifying, played out in the hushed corridors of a chateau on the outskirts of Paris. Dr. Genessier, aided by his devoted assistant, stalks Paris in search of donors, all in the name of science and twisted love. The film is equal parts fairy tale and nightmare, and its imagery lingers long after the credits roll. The daughter, Christiane, wears a blank, expressionless mask, gliding silently through the house, a vision as haunting as any masked slasher who would follow. The surgical scenes are disturbingly realistic, shocking audiences of the time, and inspiring future generations of filmmakers to push the limits of on-screen horror. Eyes Without a Face set the stage for the mad scientist subgenre and the use of masks as a symbol of fractured identity, a key element in later slasher films. The idea of the killer hiding behind a false face would become iconic, echoed in Michael Myers' blank visage and Jason's hockey mask. The film's blend of pathos and horror, its tragic villain and doomed victims, helped redefine what horror could be. Not just scares, but a meditation on guilt, love, and obsession. Modern slashers owe a debt to Franju's quiet, beautiful terror. Number 5. The Innocence, 1961. What's scarier than a haunted house? A haunted mind. The Innocence, Jack Clayton's chilling adaptation of Henry James's The Turn of the Screw, is a masterclass in psychological horror, urban legend, and ambiguous evil. Deborah Kerr stars as Miss Giddens, a governess charged with caring for 2 children in a sprawling English estate. It's not long before she becomes convinced that ghosts haunt the grounds and that the children themselves are somehow involved. What makes The Innocence so unnerving is its refusal to spell things out. Are the ghosts real, or is Miss Giddens losing her grip on reality? This uncertainty is the stuff of fireside tales and whispered rumors, a ghost story that changes with each telling. The film's lush black and white cinematography drenches every scene in atmosphere. Shadows flicker, faces appear in windows, and the sound of distant laughter echoes through empty halls. Later slasher films would take cues from the innocent sense of isolation, unreliable narrators, and the idea that horror might lurk in the mind as much as in the shadows. The ambiguous ending paved the way for films that keep audiences guessing until the final frame, a hallmark of modern horror. The slow, mounting dread of the Innocence proves that sometimes what you don't see, or can't be sure you saw, is the most terrifying of all. Its influence runs deep, making it a key ancestor of the psychological slasher. Number 6. Carnival of Souls, 1962. Carnival of Souls feels like a ghost story you might hear from a friend who swears it happened to someone they know. A strange tale of a woman, Mary Henry, who survives a car accident only to be pursued by silent, ghostly figures. Filmed on a shoestring budget in Utah, Herc Harvey's indie classic became a cult phenomenon, and its eerie, dreamlike atmosphere set it apart from everything else in the early 60s. The story follows Mary as she moves to a new town to take up a job as a church organist, but she finds herself drawn to an abandoned carnival on the outskirts of town, a liminal space where the dead seem to dance. The film's desolate landscapes, ghostly ghoul makeup, and unsettling organ score combine to create an atmosphere that's both otherworldly and deeply personal. Urban legend weaves through every scene, the idea of the living dead, the sense that something is off just beneath the surface, and the ultimate twist. Mary was never really alive at all. Carnival of Souls was ahead of its time, anticipating the rise of psychological horror and the final girl motif that would become slasher staples. Mary's sense of alienation, her inability to connect with others, and the relentless pursuit by faceless beings became blueprints for everything from Nightmare on Elm Street to Silent Hill. The film's influence can be felt in countless horror films that blur the line between life and death, dream and reality. Number 7. The Cabinet of Caligari, 1962. Inspired by the German expressionist classic, but reimagined for a new era, The Cabinet of Caligari, 1962, is a labyrinthine journey through madness and illusion, a psychological urban legend for the modern age. The film centers on Jane Lindstrom, a woman who, after suffering a flat tire, finds herself in a bizarre estate run by the mysterious Dr. Caligari. She quickly realizes that nothing is as it seems. The other guests are just as trapped as she is, and the boundaries between reality and delusion begin to blur. The film unfolds like a fever dream, filled with odd angles, surreal set pieces, and a mounting sense of paranoia. As Jane navigates the estate's corridors, she uncovers a series of mind games, gaslighting, and hidden agendas. The urban legend here is the old tale of the Mad Doctor, but Cabinet spins it into a metaphor for control and psychological manipulation. Its twist ending, revealing Jane's experience as a hallucination during therapy, foreshadows the unreliable realities explored in later slashers and thrillers. While it wasn't a box office smash, The Cabinet of Caligari anticipated the psychological horror boom of the late 20th century, laying groundwork for films like A Nightmare on Elm Street and Shutter Island. Its emphasis on distorted perception, shifting realities, and the danger lurking inside one's own mind would become central to countless horror films, especially those that ask, "Is this real, or am I losing my mind?" Number 8. Homicidal, 1961. William Castle's Homicidal is pure urban legend. A stranger arrives in a quiet town, secrets fester, and bodies pile up. The film opens with a mysterious woman, Emily, hiring a justice of the peace for a late-night marriage, only to murder him moments after the ceremony. The town is left reeling, and as the investigation unfolds, it becomes clear that Emily is connected to the wealthy and reclusive Warren family. Homicidal plays with gender and identity in ways far ahead of its time. The twist, revealing that Emily is actually Warren, cross-dressing to cover up past trauma and inheritance drama, was shocking in 1961 and directly influenced future films that explore hidden identities and dual personalities, from Sleepaway Camp to Dressed to Kill. Castle, always a showman, even included a fright break, inviting terrified viewers to leave the theater before the climax. Like any good urban legend, the story is laced with gossip, whispers, and the creeping suspicion that nothing in this small town is what it seems. The film's emphasis on family secrets, disguised killers, and last-minute reveals helped define the structure of later slashers, while its blend of camp and menace proved that horror could be both shocking and fun. In the hands of Castle, Homicidal is a wickedly clever proto-slasher that still delivers the goods. Number 9. Black Sabbath, 1963. Before he became the maestro of Italian horror, Mario Bava crafted Black Sabbath, a trio of terrifying tales that played like urban legends spun around a campfire. The second story, The Telephone, is particularly significant for the slasher genre. A woman named Rosie is harassed by threatening phone calls from a man she once helped convict. Alone in her apartment, with shadows stretching across the walls, she becomes convinced the killer is coming for her. And she's right. The trope of the call is coming from inside the house would later be immortalized in films like Black Christmas and When a Stranger Calls, but Black Sabbath was ahead of the game, blending stalker suspense with supernatural chills. The film's other segments, about a vengeful vampire and a cursed ring, are pure urban legend, with twist endings and moral warnings. Bava's command of color and atmosphere, along with Boris Karloff's ghoulish hosting, make Black Sabbath a feverish dream of fear and folklore. The sense of isolation, the unknown caller, and the final confrontation would all become staples of the slasher genre. The movie's influence is clear every time you see a terrified babysitter, a ringing phone, or a relentless killer. You're hearing echoes of Black Sabbath's midnight tales. Number 10. The Haunting, 1963. Robert Wise's The Haunting is a masterwork of suggestion and suspense, a haunted house film that draws on urban legends of cursed mansions and restless spirits. The plot is classic. A group of strangers is invited to Hill House to investigate paranormal phenomena, but it quickly becomes clear that the house, and perhaps their own minds, pose the greatest threat. Julie Harris's Eleanor is a bundle of nerves, haunted by her past and increasingly convinced that the house is alive. Wise's direction is a lesson in restraint. Doors breathe, walls bulge, and whispers fill the air, but the source of the terror is always just out of sight. The film's refusal to show its ghosts directly invites viewers to imagine their own worst fears, an urban legend tactic that has fueled nightmares for generations. The Haunting influenced the slasher genre in its use of location as a character and its focus on psychological breakdowns. The idea of a group trapped in an isolated place, picked off or driven mad by an unseen force, would become the backbone of countless horror films. The film's ambiguity, are the ghosts real or is Eleanor losing her mind, remains one of horror's most enduring questions, keeping the legend of Hill House alive. Number 11. Blood Feast, 1963. If you've ever wondered where the modern slasher's obsession with gore began, look no further than Herschel Gordon Lewis's Blood Feast. Advertised as the first splatter movie, this low-budget shocker tells the story of Fuad Ramses, a deranged caterer who prepares an ancient Egyptian blood feast by dismembering and murdering unsuspecting women across Miami. The urban legend is unmistakable, the local butcher or grocer with sinister motives, picking off victims in plain sight. The film's plot is paper-thin, but its influence is massive. Ramses's ritual killings, complete with blood and guts, broke taboos and paved the way for the explicit violence of later slashers. The movie's lurid marketing, over-the-top deaths, and campy performances set a template for exploitation horror, showing that sometimes shock and awe are more memorable than subtlety. Blood Feast was derided by critics but became a midnight movie sensation, its reputation growing over time. The idea of a killer on a mission, systematically eliminating victims with creative brutality, became a cornerstone of the slasher formula. For better or worse, every chainsaw-wielding maniac and masked murderer owes a nod to Ramses and his gruesome feast. Number 12. Straitjacket, 1964. What if your mother was a murderer? Straight Jacket, starring Joan Crawford, puts this urban legend front and center. The film opens with a flashback. Lucy Harbin discovers her husband in bed with another woman and, in a fit of rage, hacks them to death with an axe, right in front of her young daughter. Locked away in an asylum for 20 years, Lucy is finally released, trying to reconnect with her now-grown daughter, Carol. But as soon as Lucy returns home, the axe murders start up again. Is Lucy relapsing, or is someone trying to frame her? William Castle ratchets up the suspense, blending soap opera melodrama with lurid violence. Crawford's performance is both unhinged and sympathetic, channeling the fear that the past can never truly be buried. The killer mom trope would later explode in films like Friday the 13th, where Pamela Voorhees becomes the ultimate avenging mother. Straight Jacket's mix of family drama, generational trauma, and shocking violence set the stage for a whole subgenre of maternal slashers. The film's twist ending, revealing the real killer, cements its place as a proto-slasher classic, proof that sometimes the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. Number 13. The Satist, 1963. Inspired by the real-life Charles Starkweather killings, The Satist is an early exercise in sheer terror. The plot is a pure urban legend. 3 teachers, stranded on a desert road, fall prey to a gun-toting psychopath and his equally unhinged girlfriend. As the sun beats down, the sense of isolation and doom grows, a template that later slashers would use to great effect. Arch Hall Jr.'s performance as Charlie is chilling, all sadistic glee and dead-eyed menace. The violence is raw and unrelenting, and the film's low budget only adds to its grimy realism. The idea of being stalked by a stranger in a remote location became a foundational horror trope, echoed in everything from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre to Wolf Creek. The Sadist is a relentless, nerve-jangling ride, its pacing and brutality ahead of its time. The sense of helplessness, the escalating tension, and the sudden bursts of violence all point toward the structure of the slasher movie to come. It's the ultimate wrong place, wrong time nightmare, transformed into a cinematic urban legend that still packs a punch. Number 14. The Nightwalker, 1964. In The Nightwalker, urban legend meets nightmare as Barbara Stanwyck stars as Irene, a woman tormented by vivid dreams of a mysterious lover. Dreams that turn increasingly sinister after the apparent death of her jealous, blind husband. Directed by William Castle and written by Psycho's Robert Bloch, the film blurs the line between fantasy and reality, setting the stage for future horrors about the dangers lurking in the subconscious. Irene's dreams become so real that she begins to doubt her own sanity, a classic urban legend fear. What if you can't trust your own mind? The story weaves in themes of gaslighting, murder, and greed, with Stanwyck's performance grounding the surreal plot in genuine emotional terror. The film's shifting realities and hallucinatory sequences would later influence the nightmare logic of slashers like A Nightmare on Elm Street. The Nightwalker is a heady blend of psychological suspense and gothic melodrama, its dreamlike structure paving the way for horrors that question what's real. It's a film that whispers, "Beware the darkness within, for that's where the real monsters hide." Number 15. The Bird with the Crystal Plumage, 1969. The slasher genre as we know it wouldn't exist without Italian giallo, and The Bird with the Crystal Plumage is ground zero. Directed by Dario Argento, the film follows Sam Dalmas, an American writer in Rome who witnesses a brutal attack in an art gallery. Obsessed with solving the crime, he becomes entangled in a web of danger, deception, and murder. Argento's film is a kaleidoscope of style, gloved killers, stalking camera work, and shocking set pieces. The killer's identity is hidden until the end, their motives tied to buried trauma and obsession, classic urban legend themes. The city becomes a character, its modernity hiding ancient evils and dark secrets. The bird with the crystal plumage introduced the structure and imagery that would define the slasher genre. The faceless killer, the vulnerable but determined protagonist, and the series of escalating murders. Argento's influence spread quickly. Without this film, there's no Halloween, no Friday the 13th, no endless parade of masked killers. The urban legend of the killer in the city is brought to vivid, stylish life, a blueprint for terror that still inspires filmmakers today. Did these twisted tales from the 1960s send chills down your spine? Urban legends never die. They just come back stronger in every new horror movie we love. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the origins of the slasher genre, don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with your fellow horror fans, and subscribe to our channel for more terrifying journeys through film history. Have a favorite urban legend or slasher we missed? Let us know in the comments below, and keep watching the shadows.